Welcome back to Wellness Wave Radio. Thanks for tuning in this morning to ride the wave with us. Each week our goal is to give you at least one suggestion that will make your life a little better. My name is Phil George. I'm a clinical biochemist, a certified personal trainer, and a health coach. Please remember, everything we discuss on the show is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. Always seek the guidance of your medical professional. So today's show is going to be on, you guys have probably heard of it by now. It's called the ketogenic diet. So I'm going to get a little bit into ketosis, a little bit into the biochemistry. And I've been doing the ketogenic diet. Actually, I'm doing more like the carnivore diet, which is a carnivore keto. That's why I have my friend Will the Wolf here. And as you know, there's certain animals are carnivores, certain animals are herbivores, and certain animals are omnivores, which they eat a little bit of everything. So we're considered by a lot of people as omnivores, so we can eat pretty much everything, but you're not going to see a wolf or a lion, eating vegetables. They're going to be eating meat, and that's what they're kind of designed to do. So carnivores, by definition, are going to be in ketosis most of the time. And all ketosis means is instead of burning sugar, you're burning ketones. So let me just break down what ketones are. So ketones are a byproduct of fat. So when fat is a whole bunch of ketones put together, and when they're broken down, they turn into ketones. Ketones are something your body can use as fuel. It can't use fat. It has to break it down. Just like even with a carbohydrate, you really can't use a carbohydrate as fuel. You got to break it down into sugar. Okay, so it works the same way. So the way to think about it, the way I like to explain it to clients and when I do seminars, is with ketones. Again, what you need to do is you need to break them down. Same with carbohydrates. You need to break down carbohydrates into sugar. You probably heard a lot of sugar, a lot of what they call high glycemic carbs, which means they're broken down to sugar really quickly. A good example of that are like bread, bagels, donuts. Even though they're carbohydrates, they break down almost instantly into sugar. What happens is your sugar is stored, a part of it is stored in your liver as a storage form is called glycogen. So glycogen, the way to think about it is this, is what happens is like water, okay, if you put water in a freezer, it freezes and it turns into ice. That's what happens with sugar. What happens, sugar gets into the liver, it puts it all together and kind of like ice, and it stores there in case you need it. The problem is once the storage form is full, in other words, when you cannot put any more ice in the ice tray, it overflows and you have to do something with it. Once you have too much sugar in your body, it gets turned into fat. It changes into fat. It basically it gets into a storage form, and that's why people get obese, is because they keep eating sugar and there's no place to put it. So that's the problem. That's the problem eating too much sugar. So your body can basically burn two forms of energy. Think about it as a Prius, like a Prius car. It can either burn gasoline or it can burn electricity. Electricity is a lot cleaner and gas is a lot dirtier. Same thing with sugar. Sugar is a lot dirtier fuel, and ketones are a lot cleaner burning fuel. This goes pretty much all over the body. The big thing now, obviously, is Alzheimer's dementia. You probably heard it's being called now type 3 diabetes. Because what happens is the blood-brain barrier, the sugar going into the brain, it messes up the brain, causes a lot of inflammations. You get the tau tangles, the amyloid plaque, and all the rest of that stuff. So you don't want that. So what a lot of people are recommending now is to get into a ketogenic diet. Now, the ketogenic diet just means what happens is when you exhaust all of the glycogen in your liver, there's nothing left. Your body goes to your fat cells, and it will wind up taking out the fat cells and breaks the fat cells, comes out, breaks down to the ketones, and then the ketones are used as fuel. It's a couple of things with ketones. Number one is that it's a very clean burning. It doesn't cause a lot of what's called oxidation. All oxidation means, like in a car, if you get water and there's not enough sealant over it, the car rusts. So same thing happens in your body. You're rusting from the inside out. That's oxidation. It's caused by too much glucose, Well, you just can't burn it anymore. So that's the problem with glucose. So that's why they want people on a ketogenic diet. Let me just back up. There's a really good movie if you want to check it out. It's on Netflix. It's called First Do No Harm, and that's an Hippocratic oath by Hippocrates. So it's called First Do No Harm with Meryl Streep. What happened with her is her son had something called drug-resistant epilepsy. In other words, all the drugs they gave him to stop the seizures would not happen. He was having multiple seizures a day. Again, they tried everything, nothing worked on this kid. They kind of found out by accident something called a metabolic ketogenic diet, which means just about zero carbs for this kid, all ketones. Now, one of the things ketones do is they decrease inflammation in the brain. And one of the problems, again, with epilepsy, it's also inflammation. Same thing with Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's disease. It's all inflammation in the brain. Because again, the sugar causes a lot of inflammation. So the ketones don't do that. So by him, the kid's name was Charlie. In fact, they started a foundation named after him called the Charlie Foundation for kids. So that's one of the things that you can do in terms of keeping down the inflammation in the brain. I'll give you a real life story. So I was doing seminars for various veteran groups all over New England, and one of the administrators there, he had a son that was in the military, and his son didn't have epilepsy. He was having seizures, and they didn't know why he was having seizures, and they took his driver's license away from him. And one of the things, one of the executive directors came to me and said, "Will you talk to my son, see if you can do anything for him to help him with the seizures?" So again, I'm big into ketosis. I know about ketosis. So I sat down with them. Interesting. So his father-in-law was sitting there, and the son was sitting. He's maybe in his 20s or 30s. And I came in there, and what do they have on the table? They have donuts all over the table, and they're eating the donuts and stuff like that. So I said, well, maybe one of the problems is you're having too much sugar. So what I sat down with the kid, and I said, look, we're going to change your diet. We're going to put you on a ketogenic diet. You know, no bad carbs, nothing like that. You know, fruits, vegetables, that's okay. But none of this high glycemic. Glycemic just means how fast the stuff gets into your body. You can look that up on anywhere on YouTube. Just put your food in there, and it'll come back, and it'll tell you the glycemic index, how fast it gets turned into sugar. So long story short, by me just changing his diet, it stopped all of his seizures. So no seizures, okay? I'm just basing this on, again, by what they've done with the ketogenic diet with epilepsy. So again, if you're having a lot of brain fog and things like that, it could be your diet. One of the first things I do, let me just back up again. So Dr. Emily and I, she's been on the show a few times, we have a clinic now right on Burncoat Street. We started in April. We're ready to go. We got we got red light therapy for the head. We got red light therapy there. So Dr. Emily, she's basically seeing people, you know, in terms of psychiatric types of stuff, but she meets a lot with first responders. They're stressed out. They're drinking too much. They're doing this. They're doing that. And they just, you know, in fact, they have a hard time coping. So she deals with them in terms of, you know, getting their head together. I sit down with them and I deal with them in terms of nutrition, exercise, those types of things. In fact, I had an appointment up at the clinic. In fact, feel free to email me, phil.george@charter.net. You want a free consult, come up to the clinic. You can meet with Dr. Emily and myself, and you know we can I can go over your lab work with you, let you know what you should have done, go over your diet, that type of stuff. So she wanted to meet with this particular first responder, and his problem was he was drinking way too much. If you know first responders, again with me, when I worked in the hospital, I was working a ton of hours. It's a very stressful job because people's lives are on the line. You can't mess up. You can't, you know, I did what they call cross-match blood, which means you come in to the emergency room, you're bleeding out. I got to get blood to you right away, but I can't give you the wrong type of blood, so I got to be very, very focused. And I used to work at Holden Hospital, a relatively small hospital. So I was the 311 shift. I did everything from toxicology, hematology, you name the ontology, and I was actually doing that. But we had no 11 to 7 shift because it was a small hospital. So I was on what they call, I was on call. These were the times before cell phones. I would have a beeper. So I could go home, sleep for 2 hours, get called back in and cross-match blood or do things for people. So I was working a ton of hours. I was really, really, I had a wife, kids, mortgage, the whole 9 yards. And I was really drinking way too much going back to my teenage days. So I was drinking all the time. And that's not a good thing, not good for your health, not good for anything else. And, you know, I never had no DWIs. I considered myself a functioning alcoholic, which means I could drink, but I could work, and I didn't get arrested or anything like that. But at some point, I realized that wasn't right for me, and I had to stop. Now, I had all my genes. I had genetic testing done on myself, and I have a gene that has a predisposition for addiction. In other words, I could become more addicted to things like cocaine, never tried cocaine. I could get addicted to different things, and I had to be careful. So I eventually got off of all alcohol. But I have a relative, and I went out with her one time, and we were out to, you know, I don't drink anymore at all. And I went out with her, and she had 3 glasses of wine before the meal even came. And I sat down with her and I said, look, I said, I'm a little worried about you because, you know, we got alcoholism in our family. All my kids were drinking too much at one time. So it's a genetic trait. And anyway, so I said, there's something we can have now. It's called hard ketones. And what this is, it's not alcohol, but you drink it, but it gives you a little bit of a buzz. In other words, it takes the edge off. So if you've got a tough job, you may want to go home and have a glass of wine or something like that. This does the same thing. And again, one of the things I did in the hospital, I worked in toxicology, which means if you got pulled over for DWI, they would send the blood test to me, and I would look in there, and I put it through something called a spectrophotometer, and I could see if you're alcohol, whatever the level is, and I could let them know. Or if you're on cocaine or whatever, or marijuana, I could figure that out by looking at the spectrophotometer. But with this keto drink, it produces like keto alcohol, which is not really alcohol, but what it does is it gives you that little bit of a buzz. So this is a way we're working with first responders and anybody you know that's trying to get off the sauce. Email me, philgeorge@charter.net. So we have this very, very specific keto drink that, again, will give you that little bit of a buzz that you like, you know, take the edge off if you're stressed out. They recommend you don't have any more than 2 of these, but all it does is it puts you into ketosis, okay, which is the good stuff. And it's going to, you know, kind of squash your appetite and things like that. So this is one of the things we're doing, again, with first responders or anybody that's trying to get off of alcohol is to do this ketogenic drink. It helps you, it gives you that little bit, you know, that calming feeling. And if 2 of these will get you pretty good buzz. But again, if they pulled you over, you're not going to get. The police officer may suspect that you're impaired somehow, but you're not going to show up. I'm not telling you to break the law or anything. I'm not saying don't drive if you take two of these things. But what I'm saying is it doesn't really affect your health the way alcohol is. Because what happens with alcohol, it turns into a byproduct called acetaldehyde, and that causes a lot of problems with your liver and your brain and everything else. So at one time, we used to think that drinking 1 or 2 drinks a day was okay. Now they're finding no amount of alcohol is good for you anymore. So you got to be careful on that. So this is one of the things we do at the clinic. We can go over your diet with you, what you're doing, and it's very hard. There's two ways to get into ketosis. One of the ways is what they call metabolic ketosis, which means you just cut way down on the sugar and you eat a lot of meat or low carb things. That takes a very long time to do because your body has to get adapted to this ketogenic state. The simpler way is to get what they call exogenous ketones. In fact, when I was going to see this gentleman today, he had tried ketones before, There are two kinds of ketones, what they call exogenous. Exogenous just means you take it from the outside in. You're not making it from the inside. So he tried a ketone, but it tasted awful. So there's two types of exogenous ketones, and I know what he took. He took something called a ketone ester. It tastes awful. It will get you into ketosis, but it tastes awful. So he canceled at the last minute, but I was going to drive up there and meet with him. I was going to have it with me, bring in the drink for the, that I was telling you about, that puts you into ketosis and gives you a little bit of a buzz. I had a second one that I give athletes, that ketosis, gets you into ketosis immediately. You drink it and it tastes pretty good. So that way you can kind of cheat your way into this. In other words, you don't have to go into a real, like a low carb diet and stuff like this. This will get you into it. The other thing that happens, again, with the exogenous ketones is what's happening is your body is getting adapted to it. Your body gets used to it. Oh yeah, now I don't have to keep burning sugar. I can burn ketones for fuel. So what happens is this, as you're cutting down more and more on the carbs, your body gets used to using ketones as fuel and not sugar as fuel. Also, your gut gets used to it. In other words, if you're eating a lot of sugar, you produce a lot of bacteria in your gut that want sugar. They're sugar-burning gut bacteria. You have something in your body. It's called the vagal nerve. It goes from your gut right to your brain. So if your body's used to doing sugar all the time, the bacteria in your gut are screaming up to your brain, "I want more sugar. I want more sugar," because they're used to having sugar. But the bacteria that burns ketones, there's not as many, so they don't have as much a say into telling your brain what you want. So by doing these exogenous ketones, what you're doing is your body's getting used to it. Also, what happens, the main ketone that you want is something called beta-hydroxybutyrate. Remember that. Butyrate's the last one. You have butyrate is the ketone in your gut, and what it does is it helps with your gut lining. It helps with a whole bunch of different things. So with the butyrate in your gut, it's getting more of the good bacteria. So now you're not being screaming. You get that sugar craving. You want that Snickers bar. You want this. It's because the bacteria in your gut is screaming up there, "I want more sugar." So you're kind of changing your gut bacteria, the population of gut bacteria, to wanting to burn more ketones. The other thing that happens, so let's say you stop burning the ketones, and let's say you decide you want to fast for 1 or 2 days. What'll happen is it's looking for fat. What it'll do is it'll take the fat. If you're overweight, it'll take the fat right out of you. It'll start burning your own fat. There's a very famous story. I talk about this a lot of times in my seminars. So I'll ask you guys to think about this. How long? What's the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest fast a person's ever had? Any guesses? What do you think? Week, month, 2 days, 3 months? It's over 365 days. It was verified. This English guy weighed over 400 pounds. So his doctor told him to go on a fast. Now, I'm not, fast, you got to be careful. You got to drink electrolytes, water with electrolytes in it. All he had was liquid, just liquid stuff, no food, but for more than 300, look it up on AI, more than 365 days. He's a guy from England, and he was under medical supervision. He lost almost all those 400 pounds in weight and was back to normal again. So you can go a very, very long time without eating, whether you realize it or not. But you got to be careful. You should do this under medical supervision, or contact me or Dr. Emily. We'll walk you through, because you got to be taking electrolytes with that and everything else. But a good way to doing it is there's something called intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating. Remember we talked before about the glycogen in the liver? So it takes you about 12 to 16 hours to exhaust all of the glycogen in the liver, which is the one that pushes out the glucose into it. Once that's exhausted, your body has to pull fat out of your body, and that you're losing weight that way. So what I recommend for people is, first of all, even though they tell you that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, it's not. This is made up by some cereal company. So what happens, you think about it, if you're sleeping, you're not supposed to eat at least 2 to 3 hours before you go to bed. So let's say 3 hours. Let's say 3 hours. So that's 8. You sleep 8 hours, that's 3 hours, that's 11 hours. Then if you don't eat until like later in the day, 10 o'clock, all those add up. You've gone through all of your glycogen stores in your liver, and now you're burning your own fat. So if you're looking to lose weight, forget about the GLP-1s, because there's a problem with them. They also burn muscle. You can do this naturally. And once you get used to it, and again, you can still take what they call MCT oil, medium chain triglyceride oil. I get these little, I should have brought one with me. I've got these little packets. You can just pop that. That'll give you energy, so you're not going to get hungry, and it keeps you in ketosis. So you want to be in ketosis as much as possible, because what's happening is you're changing your gut bacteria, and the other thing you're doing, you're also you're going to wind up burning your own fat. So just by changing your diet, it makes a huge difference. So again, we can break this down for you. So you want low glycemic, which means whatever, like a good example, a lot of people don't know this, but vegetables are actually a carbohydrate, okay? So you are eating carbohydrate, but it's a very low glycemic. In other words, it breaks down to sugar very, very slowly. What happens, it gets into your gut, it's got fiber in it, so it's a very, very low glycemic. So you want low glycemic foods. Fruit's not bad. Fruit obviously has fructose in it, which is a sugar, but one thing, you don't want to be drinking a lot of fruit juice, because what happens is pure fructose, okay? That's going to go right into your liver. You don't want fruit juice, okay? The reason fruit is good, fruit is what they call chelated. All chelated just means is that the fructose is bound to something else, which means it's released very, very slowly into the body. Fruit juice is straight sugar. It's like drinking Coca-Cola, so you don't want that. The other thing is a lot of people, they drink diet soda. What they found out, diet soda is not good for you either, because what happens is it still tastes sweet, and it messes up your gut bacteria. So that's no good. So just drink water. It can still taste good. I have these salt packs that taste good, but they don't have any calories in them. So that's one of the things Dr. Emily and I do. We'll sit down with you. We can give you a whole breakdown of exactly what's going on. So the questions I normally ask when I see a new client is, number one is their diet, what they're eating. Obviously, are you exercising? You want to do what's called resistance training, because you want to build up as much muscle as you possibly can. One of the things is that you have something called your basal metabolic rate, your BMR. What that means is how many calories you're burning doing nothing, just sitting here, just to keep you alive. How many calories are you burning? The more muscle mass you have, the more calories you burn. Your muscles are very sugar intense, a sugar hog. They suck sugar in like crazy. The reason for this goes back to again caveman days, in terms of exactly what you need. If you need to run away from the lion, you need big muscles. So what happens is, the first place sugar goes is into your muscles, okay, because you want to build them up. So if you have large muscles, what happens? You raise your metabolic rate automatically, because all the sugar goes into the muscles. That's why these big bodybuilders with these huge muscles, what they're doing is they can eat a ton of stuff and not gain any weight, because they have so much muscle, and basically all of the sugar gets put in there. The other thing you can do is, after you eat a meal, if you want to just either take a little walk, because the largest muscles in your body are your glutes, which are your rumps, and your quadriceps, which are your thigh muscles. Those are the biggest muscles. So if after you eat, if you walk around, what happens is that sugar gets sucked into the muscles. So even if you don't want to go walk outside, walk up and down the stairs, walk around a little bit, do some chores or whatever. That's going to suck the sugar right out of there. The other thing is, if you're pre-diabetic or even diabetic, again, this will keep your sugar down. So you want to build up muscle. I think I mentioned in the beginning, I'm a certified personal trainer, so I can show people how to do what we call exercise snacks. We covered that on another show. You can do exercise at home. You don't have to join a gym. I can show you stuff that you can do at home without a problem. But I think 40% of Americans now are obese. I just saw that. So a lot of people are obese or overweight. And again, they go to the GLP-1s, but you're on that for life. So Before you go in the GLP-1s, why don't you make an appointment to see myself and Dr. Emily. Again, PhilGeorge at charted.net. Come down to the clinic. We have a lot of, we're cutting edge stuff here. Again, I'm a biochemist, I'm a biohacker. I get stuff that most people have never even heard of, but it does a tremendous amount of stuff for your health. And again, these are things that you can try. You can try at the clinic. And if it works for you, we do have like a leasing program. So some of these things can be expensive. So what we do, we have what they call like, rent to own type of thing. So you can pay so much per month, for like the red light helmet therapy, for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. These things are expensive, but we have them. And we have connections with the suppliers, so we can get you this stuff. Have you try it. Try it, you don't like it, give it back to us. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Emily has something called a vagal nerve stimulator. If you're really stressed out, this stuff will calm you down. It's like, 5 minutes, you put it on your neck. It changes, your sympathetic, your fight or flight system, your parasympathetic, your rest and recovery. What it does is it switches you over from the fight or flight to the rest and recovery. So we have that also. Again, we have all these toys that you guys can try out. We're bringing new stuff in all the time. Again, this is cutting edge stuff. Oh, by the way, the red light therapy for like concussions and stuff like that. The VA actually uses this on veterans, and there's a lot of science behind it. I'm a biochemist. I can show you study after study on this, the way it works. So even if you're looking just to improve your mind, I've had this V-light, this red light helmet therapy that I had on the show before that I showed you. I've been using this for at least 10 years. I use it this morning. I use it every other day, and it keeps my mind pretty sharp. If you just want to get rid of the brain fog and stuff like that, if you're stressed out, come and check out all of the different devices we have. A lot of them are considered actually medical devices, and they're cleared by the FDA. So we have different devices. The big thing is the diet. Diet is so important. The other big one is sleep. So we can also help you with your sleep. You're having trouble sleeping. We have all kinds of different devices to help you with sleep, and it's just some really simple things you can do in terms of, again, not eating 2 or 3 hours before you go to bed. Again, we have what they call the blue light blocking glasses. We can show you how to use those. We can also help you in terms of just different things you need to do before you go to bed. We have all kinds of different breathing techniques that can calm you down automatically. And again, these are all things that, if you think about it, your health is the most important thing. You can have all the money in the world, but if your health is lousy, what does that mean? So you don't want to wait until you're at death's door before you do something. Obviously you want to intervene on these things beforehand and not wait until the very last minute, to get things done. So come on in. The first appointment's free. We'll show you all the stuff. Obviously, our hope is that you see the value in this, and then you'll come in, hire us. And we do have our rates are we do have, like, I think Emily's calling them scholarships or something. You really can't afford it. We'll find a way to make it affordable for you in terms of trying it out. So again, it sounds goody two-shoes, but the reason Dr. Emily and I teamed up is because we have the same vision. We really want to help people, and really it comes down to, of course, we have to feed our families, pay our mortgages and stuff like that. So but if there's a way, again, we can figure out a way for us to work with you. But again, you have nothing to lose, and a lot of the stuff most physicians have not even heard of. Again, they're in allopathic, and what they're doing basically is they have to follow drugs or procedures. We're looking root cause of problems. What's causing the problems? Let's fix the problems so you don't have to wind up having a surgery or even a surgery or be on medications for the rest of your life. And again, Dr. Emily can't prescribe meds. She can take you off meds. So we have, I think we got the whole, they called dual mind psychiatry, dual minds, got Emily's mind, my mind. We kind of work together really well. So feel free to email me, philgeorge@charted.net, if you want an appointment, or email me if you have any questions, and I'll get back to you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. One of the most common questions I'm asked as a biochemist and health coach is what are the best supplements to take. Choosing supplements is a tricky business. Many companies have poor quality control and questionable ingredients. In the past, I had to send clients to several different websites. I am now able to offer one-stop shopping for all the quality brands I recommend with no shipping cost and a lower price in most cases. Just email me, philgeorge@charter.net for a free consult.